Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm here with Austin. We're going to talk about just the current China situation and potentially the taco flop on this China framework. Why it's important, this is probably the biggest geopolitical threat out there and probably biggest threat long term, I guess, U.S. hegemony. So with that, Austin, I'll kick it to you. Tell us about the I think you've looked at this, right? You've looked at the framework that they sent out for the deal.
Yeah, as far as like the high details, like I didn't know till today that they'd actually had an in-person meeting, so that one kind of slipped by me. But I did read like like the handout and kind of the high level view of it and stuff like that. So probably the most interesting thing, and somebody sent me earlier and kind of made a point about it was like probably the most interesting thing about it, like that next Sparrow thing, where like the Dutch like removed that Chinese CEO, and that kind of kicked off like a whole thing where the Chinese were embargoing chips and stuff.
Yep.
So
Yep.
one of the things the U.S. traded in this deal was, I can't remember what they call it, but it's like some policy or something like that. So like the whole reason the Dutch arrested that guy and started that whole like, or not arrested him, but like removed him, started the whole thing, was because the U.S. instituted that policy. So it's like now the Dutch are kind of like left holding the bag because it's like we basically just traded that away. So now they basically just going through this all for basically nothing.
Well,
Which
and the Dutch have the key. I forget. Dude, I need to know more about how they make these fucking computer chips. But there was, I believe they're the only ones who have like a key piece of equipment or technology you need to make like the really high end ones, right? I think it's the getting like the silicone chip to be like extremely flat or something like that. They have some special device to do, right?
it's like, yeah, it's like so I'm not entirely sure what the connection between it. So the company that like has the lithography machines is called ASML, if I'm not mistaken. And
Yep.
so like
That's it.
I'm not sure how like the relationship works with like Nexpera, but I do know like the from what I give, the Dutch have like the lithography machines, but the Chinese like supply all the inputs and stuff, or they do like the actual manufacturing. So it's kind of like a, I guess like a partnership where it's like the Dutch will supply this and the Chinese do like the actual like manufacturing or something. So it's like, the big thing after this Xperia deal was the Chinese instituted basically like an embargo. So then I know the German car industry is getting like really hammered by this now, and I know the Japanese. I think they announced the other day they were going to have to slow down production, and then I think me and you had talked about like there was also some, there was some early reporting that U.S. manufacturers are getting hit too. So it's like they basically just kicked off this whole like escalation of the trade war and then just walked it back. So now it's like everybody's just kind of like, okay, wait, what?
Yeah, you're back to where you began.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, it's really funny. Like I've seen a lot like from Europeans being like, we basically just screwed ourselves for like no reason. Like as far as like commentators and stuff, it's like, we did this to kind of support the U.S. efforts, and now it's like, okay, so this is basically for nothing.
Yeah.
So I mean, that to me has probably been the biggest detail that I've noticed. But then like in terms of like the geopolitical implications, but then like it's like you said at the beginning, like this whole thing just looks like a taco because they basically just walk back everything. Like I need to sit down and do the exact math on it, but I think I'd messaged you earlier. I was like, they basically just gave. I think the Chinese now have like a lower tariff rate than Japan does, which really says it all.
Yeah. Um, what I always thought was interesting where it was it was like if like the other side of the spectrum would say this is why and one that I'm particularly in favor for. It's like Japan, basically the G7 needs to create like a block, right? Like that's like the only way they're going to protect themselves is if they join together. Um, and and it's because of this. I mean, and the thing is, and I know you're more on the more conservative side. I say that because I say that I'm conservative as well, but it's like over where you're at. I mean, you guys like really hate what Trump is doing because it's like you got the right policies, but the implementation is just dog shit. Like he's got the right direction, and I think that's always been my issue with him. Is it's like, hey, like you're right, like we need to take them on, but it's like you didn't get anything, you didn't assert any dominance, you didn't do anything.
they're definitely operating in like a worldview where they still think it's like the 80s or the 90s where like the US is just like all powerful, and it's like we're not at that level anymore. Like, the rest
Mhm.
of the world caught up and stuff, and it's like, like the one thing me and you've always talked about, like I'm I don't think either of us are opposed to tariffs in theory, but like it's like you said, like the implementation was just awful. And it's like you really can't just, smack a tariff and then leave it at that and just assume, it'll fix everything. It's like you have to have like an industrial policy. You have to make like, investments. You have to organize those investments. You really have to like lay the foundations for an industrial economy. You can't
Yeah.
just they really I honestly get the vibe that like they there is definitely some true believers in the administration that like really do think like tariffs is all they need. But then it's like, just look at the results, dude. It's been like what, 6 months now, and
Yeah.
like, and it's something. And me and you've talked about it a lot because it's like there's so many different ways. Like I've wrote a policy paper on it. I know you have like looked at it before too. So it's like
Well,
the
so
answers are there.
I was thinking about this on the way home, and it was one where I was like, it was with the Hyundai plant in Georgia, and they went in and arrested, all those Koreans or whatever they were.
Forgot about that.
And
Yeah.
the thing is them and they like it wasn't like they were if when they looked it up, right? It wasn't like, oh, we were just smuggling in Koreans to like work. It's like, no, these were the engineers who were there to build the plant and to train the staff and everything like that. And because I think the what they got busted for was I think they went in through like the like very short term visa thing, but they needed to be there for like 6 months. And they were
Mm.
like, we couldn't get our visa applications through. And I'm sitting here and I'm like going back to like that you got to have the G7 thing. I'm like that's one you got to put in there. Like you got to start creating like these blocks where it's like, hey, we're on this side of the team, and like we need to build these manufacturing plants. We need to implement this technology in Japan and all over. And it's like, you need to like streamline that. Like, like that's good immigration policy that you could be really going after. Whereas, as we talked about at the beginning of the year, Trump's over here, and we literally called it. Like, I think about it so often. It was like, he says he's going to do mass deportations. Great. We can maybe are on some level on that. But it's like, the issue is he's going to have military, SWAT team, you name it, out in the streets doing it, and it's going to look bad. And what is happening right now? Like, I
Oh
don't
yeah.
like, I sit here and I think about it, and I'm like, who the fuck is making these decisions? I like if someone was like, "Hey Andrew, what do you think?" I would have been like, "No, no, 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 no." Or, "Hey, do it this way, do it that way, get rid of this guy." And he just fumbles the bag.
Uh, it's I mean, yeah, like we talked about that, and it's like there were so many smarter ways they could have went about it, and that's been one of the most frustrating things about it. Like just from like a purely like professional aspect of just sitting there and like looking and like knowing what we know, it's like, dude, like you could. I mean, they came in with like they could have actually made. They could have had like a great presidency. They really could have like if they'd been smart about it, like they done proper policy. I think the biggest issue with like that aspect of it was they wanted the spectacle so they could show the base and be like, oh look, we're being tough. But then you like actually look at the data and it's like I think they're below even Obama in like deportations and stuff. And then too, it's just like they're getting. It's like people in my sphere keep saying like they're getting all the negative press, but they're not getting results for it. And then like I don't know if you saw that like since you brought the South Koreans, that they've been creating carve outs for like agriculture. I can't remember what they call those visas, and they've also like they did a bunch of like backdoor stuff with like the H-1B visas.
Hmm.
So they're actually basically increasing the pool of that, and it's like, okay, cool, great. We're getting like Elon Musk and whoever else, all the H-1Bs they want from like India, but then it's like, the South Koreans that are coming here to build factories, that would actually create, jobs for normal people. Like,
Yep.
it's just the priorities are just, you really get the sense, and I know I've said this before, they seem really detached. I know I keep saying that in like our group chats and stuff, but like just the way they make policies, it really does seem like they just don't really know what they're doing.
Well, and you know, I try to understand what's going on because, and I think the thing that I've been thinking about kind of recently is I'm like, I think it's the same thing that's happening that Trump's doing that Biden did, like straight up, right? Like basically he hoards and does his pet projects and his little specific things he wants to do, which is a very small portfolio. And he outsources everything out and then just has no idea of what's going on and letting the people run, the more extreme ends of those parts run the ship. I mean, like, look. I mean, say what you want about Biden. I mean, he was pushing the trans stuff, right?
Mhm.
And that's because he just to please those groups, he brought them into the administration. Like they always do that, And I'm like, he's like he didn't really even have a portfolio that he's doing. Maybe like the foreign stuff with Russia, but that's it. I don't think he's making any of the actual decisions. And so it makes me think like the people that you have running these things are like technocrats, just like Biden was, where the people actually running it, like the not the Kushner, the Jake Sullivans and stuff. They're technocrats. Yeah, they're gonna be completely detached, just like they were with the inflation thing with Biden. They were just completely detached by what's going on, and and it's the same thing you're seeing here with Trump. Stephen Miller is a technocrat. Russell Vogt is a technocrat, right? And so they don't have concepts of the SNAP benefits, the Medicaid, and all that kind of stuff that people, are really hitting the administration for right now. So it's honestly kind of the same thing as what was going on before.
Yeah, I mean it's like too like I don't know if you saw that like the whole press conference he did the other day where he mentioned like the MRI and like the cognitive
Oh, that
test.
was what I was going to tell you that. I
So
think
it's
there's
like
something actually going on with that.
there's enough signs at this point. It's pretty obvious. And like he's always been like really egotistical. And me and you have talked about this too. And I was like, I think it definitely seems like it's worse this time. And then like I was talking to somebody and they were like, yeah, that's kind of a classic sign because it's like they almost like double down on like their like personalities in a sense to where it's like they kind of revert to like a younger version of themselves in a way. So you
Hmm.
gotta imagine like, he was the big thing in New York back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So I mean that could just be that, amplifying that personality aspect of him. But it just seems like he's just and then too the tweets or not even, well they're not tweets. He's what they call them like what they
The
call them on tweets.
truths.
So what yeah, it's like just the stuff he just like uh, the feeling that me and a lot of people used to have was it was kind of just like, for lack of a better term, almost like boomer bait. It was just like, oh, I'm just gonna tweet about like how Joe Biden should be in jail and like that'll get him. But then now it really does just seems like it's I don't even know, man. It just seems like he's really addled in the sense that just like he hyper focuses on like this really random stuff that just I don't know. Like today, somebody was saying like, why are you even posting about Joe Biden? Like nobody's
So
like nobody.
here's a prediction I got.
Yeah,
So I think I've heard Trump's health issues. He's got congestive heart failure.
I can believe that the swollen legs.
That's what I heard people say. Is because he's overweight, poor diet, um, and I think they were like the swelling. He had swelling in his legs. So
Yeah,
obviously older
the
people
hand
have that.
thing.
That's why he's always sitting down in the chair. And then the MRI probably to look at like his heart, heart muscles or something like that.
Yeah,
Um, I think that's what you use for it. I mean, you could use some other stuff, maybe something in DVTs or something down in his veins. I don't know. But uh, that's I could see like that him getting that and dying. And then what if Biden outlives him? You know? Like
that would.
I seriously think about it. Like Trump's kind of I mean, he's like Biden, you get these issues like year one and they're gonna haunt you through the rest of your presidency. Like
Yeah,
Trump still has 3 more years, and that's why everyone's saying he cares so much about this Gaza shit because and why he's all messianic is because he's on his way out, and so he's like trying to be like, oh God, I didn't, atone for my sins, kind of a thing. That's what I hear in the left. That's why they're like, that's why he's doing all this crazy shit. And part of me is like, yeah, that makes sense, but I'm like, he's also pretty fucking crazy. Like he does some shit.
it is really funny because like you kind of approach it from like a center left perspective, and I kind of come from like the further right perspective. So it really is funny how people all our spears are kind of coming to the same conclusion. It's like, yeah, this guy's even if he doesn't, it's like at this point he's just like so screwed himself like with his decisions and stuff. It's like I mean, they may be able to gerrymander keeping Congress next year, but I mean, realistically speaking, I feel like this is just like this presidency is over. I mean, especially if like the worst happens like next week with like Snap getting like shut off. Like, I I don't know if I sent that to you, but it was there. Some they had done like a study, and they're like, oh yeah, counties that like have seen the most like Snap increases since like 2010 are like the most like Trump counties.
Yeah.
So it's like you're really, I mean, between this and then like I'm sure you saw the stuff with like the farmers and stuff, which is why I
Yep.
think a big reason they caved on like the China deal was because like the farmers and ranchers and stuff. Like he's really like, I'm sorry, dude. Like nobody I know, even like this like the big Trump people are like they don't care about that tax bill or whatever. Like that doesn't animate them. It's like, and then instead the stuff is like really, really like even people like I've known long term, they're like really big in that spirit, kind of like, yeah, this really sucks. And I mean, like that enthusiasm is just not there anymore.
I think so too. So that's what I was gonna say. I think my prediction for I think I actually just tweeted this out where I was like I said like Republicans need to be on watch. I mean, I was like if you get a recession, I was looking at it and I think it was like 10 to 14 um months is about the average length of a recession. And
Yeah,
I
right.
said if you think and I was like if you think we're gonna hit one by the end of the year, it's the end of the December, we go actually into recession. Right. You can make arguments we're already there or we probably just
Oh
hit
yeah,
it, whatever.
I definitely, yeah,
But I'm like, okay, end of the year, in December, especially with the new calendar year, starting fresh, everything like that. Okay. I think then you could look at you're gonna have elections 11 months from then. You're gonna be
oh
square
yeah,
in the middle of a recession. Um, Everyone knows Republicans' best numbers are on the economy. That's gonna go down. Then you got the SNAP benefits like you talked about, which I heard people saying is that they don't think anything's gonna get done. There's two theories. Actually, there's three. Someone said they don't think anything will get passed by Thanksgiving. And then the other one was they don't think anything will get passed by the end of the year. And then the third option, which I think would be I would be worried if this happened. They were saying people think Trump is going to tell Thune to lift the filibuster and pass the continuing resolution. Those were the three
no.
options people were saying about the shutdown.
Like that is like that's something like that last one. I've thought this. I know other people thought it too. It's like you're doing all this stuff to like increase like executive power and stuff, but I mean, you really do reach the point where it's like, okay, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I mean,
Yep.
think about that like 4 or 8 years from now. But
Yep.
as far as like the shutdown too, like we're reaching the point where like 40 million people are going to lose food stamps next week, which is absolutely insane to think about. But then there's also the element of like, we haven't talked about Venezuela in a while, but that looks like that's really heating up. And it's like, are we really going to send troops into combat with no pay?
So I heard somebody say something about that, and it was a colonel on Tucker Carlson's show. He might have said like it was like November 7th or something like that, and he said that's like the next full moon or something.
Yeah,
And he was saying like that's when it should happen. And with the carrier coming in, it's gonna come in, it'll be there for like 2 or 3 days, and then it'd be like that day. Like that's kind of like how it's like lining up with how they
that yeah.
are trading it. That's what I've heard. Now, but I'm like, okay, like let's go back to the beginning. You got that recession. You're gonna throw the SNAP benefits. You're gonna throw the Medicaid stuff on there. You're gonna throw the tax cuts for the rich, and then you're gonna throw on top of that a war in South America. And I think you're starting to see some Republicans back out because I think they're seriously worried about what's gonna happen.
I
Like
mean, yeah,
it would almost like to me would be like a I mean, everyone says Great Recession or Great Depression, but like it could be something like that where it's like everything just falls out from underneath, especially if you do have a big AI bubble that happens. That's what causes the recession, you know?
yeah. I mean, you've like tracked that for a while. Like, I know we haven't really talked about it like on air, but like that is something like me and you have like hardcore been tracking for like at least a couple of months now. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that like Nvidia is now like worth like
5
Well,
trillion.
well, yeah, it's like 14 or 16% of like the U.S. economy is now like Nvidia in terms of like its stock valuation. It's like, yeah, that's obviously a bubble.
Yep.
And yeah, it's like if that pops, which the way they're acting, it really does seem like that. Yeah, like we talked about the other day, like Sam Altman, the stuff he's trying to get like OpenAI into now. It's like so obviously, it's like they really can't get they're not. It's not good enough to where it's like AGI like they want it, but it's also like so they're basically just like reaching for anything they can to like kind of keep it going. But it's
Yep.
like yeah, and as far as like Venezuela and stuff like that matches what I've heard. Like people I talked to and stuff are like. Yeah, they'll probably like when they announced the Ford was going. I think I said to you it'd be like yeah, it'll take at least 10 to or like 7 to 10 days to
Yep.
get there, and then like I'd heard that too about like 2 or 3 days, kind of give them a chance to like get ready, and then to the point somebody made to me like several weeks ago was like Atlantic hurricane season ends around the start of November. So I mean again that
Mm.
that's and two like we just had Melissa happen, so that kind of proves the point. Like they you obviously don't want to do operations when they can get wrecked by like a
So
hurricane or something.
I want to throw a few things in there because I don't know when we'll get cut off on time. I heard somebody say, hey, the military's right there and Jamaica got hit by the storm. Instead of going to war in Venezuela, they should just go help out the people in Jamaica. And I was like, you know something? That'd be a great fucking idea. But I was like, you want to know something? That's not how the world fucking works. I was like, this shit
Yeah,
is already in motion. They are not going to help anybody out. And I was like,
but
Trump ain't gonna do that shit either. So I was like, get your head out of your ass.
that was literally like I wish I'd said that to you too because I did tell it to somebody else. I was like yeah after the hurricane hit the other day I was like the biggest tell ever will be if they don't send any help after that because usually when like a hurricane happens they send a Marine Expeditionary Unit
Yep.
there and it's like well we've got one right there guys are we going to send it to Jamaica? No, oh okay.
No.
And then I didn't bother to even look and see if it happened, but I knew it was heading towards Cuba. Did it actually hit like Guantanamo Bay like they were worried about?
I don't know. I didn't look.
I didn't look into that. I know that was a big worry like Wednesday or Tuesday, but I didn't look to see if it actually happened. But like, yeah, it's just like it's so obvious at this point. And then I don't know if you saw it before we came on air, but there was a Wall Street Journal and New York Times reporting they had selected like land targets and stuff in Venezuela. So it's like, I mean, and it's just so obvious what's coming, and it's like at this point, it's really not even a surprise. It's just like like they made it so obvious.
Yeah.
But it's just the thing that I keep thinking about is like, okay, like the Pentagon's been keeping troops paid so far because they've been raiding the what do they call it, like the R&D fund. So we're basically sacrificing like future technology to keep troops paid right now. And it's like that runs out sometime in like the first half of November. Somebody had told me, I think they said like the 14th or 15th, and then I heard earlier, and then I heard a little bit later. But I'm thinking average I saw was like the second or third week of November. So it's like, okay, we're sending troops potentially into battle with no pay, and one of the professions that has the highest usage of food stamps in America, which is really sad, is the military. Like the military is like really overrepresented in like food stamp usage.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, we're sending troops in a battle with no pay while their families are potentially starving back home. Does anybody think this, historically speaking, is a good idea? And like, they just don't ask. They really don't seem to be asking themselves that question. That really
Yeah.
basic question. Like, I know me and you had talked about, it, and I was like, historically speaking, this never works out really well for anybody that tries this. And it's
You
just
know,
like,
if that's what happens, you know how people talk about the fall of Rome and all that kind of shit? You
yeah,
will see that more than ever when that shit happens because that shit happened all the time.
the point, like I keep making like the really esoteric references, like the one I brought up with like good friend of mine. I was because he was talking, he brought up the point like they're not getting paid and going into battle, and I was like, yeah, I mean like historically, if you look at it, like you ever heard of the sack of Rome in 1527, where like the German troops hadn't been paid, so they like ransacked Rome and like basically destroyed it. And it's like, yeah, like has anybody stopped to consider what that could potentially mean in this situation? Because it's like I mean, just realistically speaking, like, yeah, our service members probably more patriotic than average, yeah, but everybody has their limits. It's like you're not getting paid, you're getting shot at, and then you're getting letters from back home. Your family's going hungry, so it's like, you know, like I just going
So
back to what we said earlier about the detachment thing. Like they really do seem to like have this bubble to where even like these really basic considerations aren't even being like thought about.
so shifting this back to China, when we talk about all this, right? And they talk about, oh, um, China's got this, what was it, 2027 plan or something like that, or window.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting here and I'm like, this is a great way. Like it's almost like baiting them to do something. And that's what I just don't understand.
You remember when we talked about the Nimitz
You know.
like a few episodes ago?
Well, oh, and before we get into that, you sent me that thing. You were like, yeah, you remember hearing about that ship that was in that was over with the Houthis. That it was what that was that the Nimitz,
That was the Truman.
the Truman, and
Yeah.
then the other one that's over by China is the Nimitz, and then
Nimitz.
there was like another one, the one that's there might have been another one that had planes fucking fall off of it too. And I'm just like, what the fuck is happening? And did you see what they blamed it? He was like, or the planes out in China. Did you hear what he said? It was probably the issue.
No,
Bad
do tell.
bad fuel.
That's even worse.
Yes.
That is actually
Like
horrific.
that's literally what he was like. He was like on Air Force One. He's like, yeah, I heard about it. From what they tell me, they're still trying to figure it out. But some of them say it's bad fuel. And I was like, really? I was like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like that's the issue we're running into, and when we might go to war with the
That's
next largest
horrifying.
fucking country. I'm like, yeah, well, like, I was like, I always think about like the worst place you'd want to be is a civilian getting bombed by an opposing country and and they have air superiority. I was like, they can just come in here and just drop whatever the fuck they want on you and you will not be safe. And I'm like, might want to make sure that we've got enough fucking fuel and the fuel it needs in our fucking planes to prevent that. And
The thing that
I'm just aghast.
me and you've talked about this a lot. Like that's actually really funny because I completely missed that. I had originally heard it was like they had flown into like a storm or something had happened. But that's really horrifying because like I know me and you've talked about like the maintenance issues before. Like the Nimitz is like supposed to be retiring at this point. So like the fact that they were having fuel issues, either a the fuel like something's up with the fuel, which is very possible. Like I know I mentioned it before, like Red Hill, which is like the main oil facility we had in the Pacific. They closed that down in 22. So like they've been like using like ad hoc measures ever since. So either that means our logistics are like really screwed up in the Pacific, or that means like the Nimitz, which less bad but still kind of bad. The Nimitz is so old, like the way the carriers like they have like internal fuel tanks.
Hmm.
So that would suggest to me that like there's somehow water getting into that system would be my guess. That
There
really
could
suggests
be.
that
Well,
that would
here's the thing. They're gonna keep that ship
they're going to have to.
because they got the JFK that's supposed to come out in 2 years. But I'm like, they still want to have 12 ships. And I think they're still at 11.
Mhm.
And I'm like, you got to keep the Nimitz around for a little bit more for like another 5 years, which makes sense. Like I could see them, they'll probably just have that one in service, upgrading it, probably what they would do. Um, but I'm like, yeah, like I mean, I'm like, okay, well, what they say, you're only as strong as the weakest chain in the link or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, there's your fucking weak link, the one that's you're sending ships out into the fucking ocean with bad fuel.
Yeah, no matter how you look at it, that's. I mean, there's degrees of badness, but either way, that's really bad. Like I completely missed that, so thank you for telling me about that. But yeah, my guess would be the likeliest answer is that ship is just so old, like they're probably getting leaks and stuff. I would not be surprised if like seawater's getting in their oil tanks. That to me would make a lot of sense. But if it's like a wider issue with like fuel supply, that's pretty horrific.
So I've got 6 minutes left, so I want to throw this at you. What do you think we're still going to have conflict with? Like, do you think we're going to have to revisit the China deal again and again and again and again?
I
Like,
feel like
do you think we're going to review it two more times before the end, before midterms?
most of the people like I see and talk to are kind of like they've kind of screwed themselves in the position where like they really can't make a grand bargain without looking weak because they made like the whole like especially Scott Benson. I remember like me and you were kind of like laughing at him the other day because some of the stuff he was saying. It's like yeah, like dude, like no, you can't come out in public and make this big thing about like we're confronting China, we'll beat them, and then you turn around and make a deal with them. Like it don't. So I feel like the way like most people seem to think is they're going to constantly be doing this whole like we've extended it for like another set period of time, and they kind of did that in the deal. Like they're like they didn't actually like neither side technically withdrew stuff, but they're kind of like we're going to suspend it for like another year. And now that I think about it, we'll have what's a year from now, at almost after midterms.
Yep.
So it's like I mean, they could try it again later, but I kind of get the sense that, like they're just going to keep doing this thing where they act tough and then they just extend it again and again until like it's politically convenient to just kind of drop it.
But see, here's the thing. What does it say about us?
You know my opinion on that, but I mean, I think the best way you could kind of phrase it is like if you're gonna like what's the term they use for it? Like not friend shore, but it's kind of like they're gonna deconnect from like China or something like that. Like you actually have to like
Near
have a
shore?
strategy. Yeah, you gotta like have a strategy for that. You can't just like what I said earlier. Like you can't just slap tariffs on it and act like that's that's all you need to do. It's a lot more complicated than that, and it requires like actual strategy and statecraft. And I think that like from everything we've seen so far, that just does not exist at this point.
No.
At least in terms of like the current administration.
Well, and the thing is, and the last thing I'll say, because I think about, okay, well, where are we right now? Like solidly. I'm like, okay, Europe, uh, Pacific. Um, and I was like, maybe in the Middle East we've got some friends. And I'm like, we really don't own it. We really don't have much of Africa. India and Pakistan probably won't help us. And you've got Russia and China on the other side. I'm like, you're not really setting yourself up well for even if you did want to get into nearshoring, because you're just replacing all those people over there in India, or that you're moving stuff to, like India, Malaysia, and the like, to South America. And, you know, if you take jobs away from what's in India, they're not going to move towards you. They're going to move away from you. And it's like, I'm worried that when you do start kind of getting these two blocks again, that we're going to kind of let something else slip. And that's what I'm worried about. And I think
Yeah,
that's going to get slipped to China. And I'm worried it's going to be India. And I think if that does, then we're cut.
yeah. I mean, you saw that the other
So,
day, but like the South Koreans and Japanese are like talking to him about doing like a currency swap deal. So I mean, like there is signs there.
hmm well, that's where I see something like this going, and I think it's really going to be who outlasts who will ultimately decide what happens.
Yeah,
And yeah, so that's what we got here. So like and subscribe. Let us know what we should do next, and we'll see you guys again. Thanks.